Good morning, Alpine. It is 6 minutes after 9 o'clock on this Tuesday morning, the 22nd of March, and I have a guest in the studio enjoying a second cup of coffee with me from Seattle, Washington. Well, actually started off there, now is in New Orleans, but I have writer Dr. Hazel. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning.
We are excited to have you on here. Okay. And this is not your first time in the Big Bend area of Texas, no?
No. I came through some years ago. I guess it was 2017. We were just introducing the book, Universal Grammar of Story, to writers. And I had a wonderful meeting with the Alpine Writers Group. Fabulous. A great creative group. And blessings of COVID came along, and then that put everything on hold for a while. So
yes, it did. Well, we're glad that you made the return trip. And well, let's talk about your book. It's called The Universal Grammar of Story. Now, this is part of a trilogy, correct?
It is. It's a series of books, and this is just about to be re-released under the title Writing for the Soul of the World, which is the subtitle of this book. The Universal Grammar of Story is a method of writing. It's a trademark method of writing based on writing wisdom from thousands of years ago, from Heraclitus all the way up into the mid-20th century.
Tell us the best way about going about learning from your book.
One thing you can do with this book is go to invisiblepress.com, our website, and you can download some free sample chapters. So you can get
a little taste of it.
Yeah, you can sample and see what you think. This book starts off telling us why we write. There are three primal forces that draw every creative artist, writers, or any artist into their work. And the first is a personal call. We're trying to resolve some unfinished business of our own psychology. And the second is a social call. Our culture needs us to help answer some crucial struggles we're working with right now. And every story subtly addresses that, although most writers don't realize that. And the third is everyone's quest for something mystical, that magical element that makes us all feel so good. So that's the beginning of the book. The second part of the book is on the structure. How do you do it? How do you lay it out? What are the tools of it? And as we answer these three primal calls, we use three different ways of thinking. We use our logic, we use our emotion, and we use our intuition. But in our society, we're not taught how to use our emotion with the same level of skill as our logic. And so I talk a lot about that. How do you exercise emotion? First of all, how do you even know how many you have? What are they? How do you tell the difference between depression or despair or happiness or giddiness? Are those the same things? And then how do you mix them together and use them in your creative work, not just in making a character realistic and interesting and funny or scary, but how do you make it for the audience to resonate within their emotion as well?
So you're basically awakening these would-be authors.
That is it. And my mission, the mission of the movement of Writing for the Soul of the World, is to awaken the ancient writer archetype. If you think you are a writer, if you fantasize like, gee, one day I want to be a writer, let me tell you right now, you are a writer. Because people who aren't born to write don't think about that. It's a painful thing to do, to sit down and face the page and try to create a story. And writers, even though they fail over and over at a particular passage or sentence or whole book, they keep going back. They keep banging their head against the paper and saying, I've got to do this. How do I do this? Well, I think the biggest part of writer's block is they don't realize what it is they're trying to convey on those three levels of the personal, the social, and the mystical. And once you align those primal forces that are drawing you to this story, the story can awaken itself, and you can get back to that moment where you feel this story is writing itself.
I'm always amazed that they'll spend years on a project and think of it as no time at all, or they didn't have enough time.
Right, exactly. One of the ways of thinking that I deal with is being in the intuitive realm. And when you're in intuition, when you're working on a creative project, you have no sense of time. a whole day can pass and it can feel like a few minutes. And like you just said, years can pass. When we're in our logical frame of mind, which is what we need to structure a story, we're very aware of the clock. Oh, it's only been 30 minutes and, what do I do? How am I going to fill the next 2.5 hours I promised because it's Saturday and I said I would write for 3 hours? And what do I do? You have to get out of your logical mind. You have to get into your emotion, which sometimes deals with time and sometimes isn't aware of the clock. And you must penetrate the world of intuition where you are gone from this realm. You have no idea where you are, what time it is. You are one with a creative source.
The pen just becomes the pen or the keyboard just becomes part of your body. You're all one.
Your pen becomes a magic wand.
Yeah. And, you talk about the logical mind, and unfortunately, we are taught to deal logically.
Yeah.
And I would think a big stumbling block for authors are their logic is telling them, I've got to be successful. This book has got to sell. Mm-hmm. But that's not what's going to bring out the true aura of an author, I don't think.
There's a wonderful parallel with a scientist who's studying music. I can't remember his name. He's a neuroscientist. He spent years looking at brain scans, and I spent a lot of my life looking at brain scans. I'm a dyslexia researcher in my other world. And he was studying great jazz musicians of the era. He would put them through MRI machines, and he was trying to figure out where is their creativity, because he had a secret love of writing music himself. And he gave up on that finally and went to these wonderful artists and said, what do I do? And they just said, you got to throw this science away and feel. You've got to just feel. And that's not just feeling emotionally, but it's feeling through intuition as well. We spend from kindergarten all the way through the doctorate in training our logic, nothing in intuition, very little in emotion, unless you're studying Jungian philosophy or acting. Then you get some emotional training. But you can train intuition.
And this book will help you do that.
This book awakens you to what it is, right, and a bit of brain science. I do enter some neuroscience and intuition, but I don't want you to get lost in that because science helps us. It's like a map. If you open up a map, it doesn't take you to that place. You can't see the hills and taste the food. You can only see where it's located. And that's what neuroscience does for art. It tells you, okay, here's a map of where it is, but you got to go there.
Yes. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself before you started writing. You're a doctor of education, and you mentioned the dyslexia.
I am a dyslexic. I'm very proud of that. And if you have any
Give us a brief definition for dyslexia.
This is a different way of understanding language is what it is. And in English, it becomes a problem with reading and writing, in English and French and German. But if you're in Italian or in other languages that are phonemically simple, there's very little disability. If you're in a pre-literate society, there is no disability. So it is a difficulty in deconstructing what's suddenly that's another thing of it right there. You lose
train of thought.
You lose your train of thought, which is a good sign for artistic things. But symbols.
See, and I thought I was just getting older and getting forgetful.
Okay, let me give you a quick example. You get this lowercase letter D, B, P, and Q. It's the same shape, but it changes meaning based on how you turn it in space. So if you have a D and turn it upside down, it's a Q. But if I have your microphone here and turn it upside down, it's still a microphone. So people with dyslexia, they just don't do well in this kind of symbol system, but they do great in other systems like emotion and intuition. So I was born with a severe visual perceptual disability, quote disability, and also dyslexia. So I didn't enter the world of literacy until late in my 20s.
Wow.
I was born into a Kentucky clan, and so I was married off at 16, and I was married into an agricultural community that didn't recognize my intellect. They recognized wonderful things about me, but they weren't able to see that I needed to go to college and get a doctorate and study brain science. And so it took a long time for me to figure that out. And once I cracked the code to the printed world, I went insane for school. I couldn't get enough. And the family was always joking, you're going to be a professional student, because I started at 28, and then it was about 45 when I got my PhD. And it wasn't enough.
Well, you were a professional student almost.
Thank you. I was. And I still am. And that's an important thing about
good.
writing.
And that is good, because you're always learning.
You should never, ever quit learning, ever. It's never too late to start reading and writing, and it's never too late to become a writer.
Well, I'll tell you what, if your book is anywhere near as positive as you're speaking, and it has got to be a fantastic book for writers. You've got me excited about it, and I can barely write my name sometimes. So, but is your book available here in town?
I strongly encourage people to buy from your local bookstore. Go to Front Street Books. If she doesn't have it in her shop, she can order it for you. And
I'm glad that you're supportive of local bookstores, because like so many other things, big businesses have come in, everything's on the internet and stuff like that. But, a bookstore is almost like a library. You get to go in there, you get to touch, you get to feel, you get to read. And thinking about what you have just told me, that's all part of your emotions and dreaming and all of that stuff. You lose a lot of that when you just click and order.
Yes.
It's so much more.
It is. It's a ritual.
That was the word I was looking for. It's almost a ritual to go into a bookstore. And well, this is fantastic. So it's a trilogy.
We have the main book, and right now the title is The Universal Grammar of Story. It's going to be re-released very soon under Writing for the Soul of the World. But both titles one's a subtitle. The second book is a workbook. So if you want the practical, logical, then get the workbook, and it guides you through fill in the blank and templates. And the third book is a game. So if you're stuck on a story and you don't know what to do, this book will help you roll the dice, find a number, open the book to that number, and that's the piece you'll need for a serendipitous story, which could be crazy fun or could just get you out of your writer's block.
Well, I'm sure there's so many writers out there. You've probably inspired them this morning, and they're either at their typewriter, computer, or getting the pen and pencil out right now.
Please let me add, if you go to the Invisible Press, our website, you'll find links to join our International Literary Salon. It's free. It's bi-monthly. We have writers from London, Montreal, Portland, Alpine, and New Orleans, and we do a 90-minute discussion about writing.
And you have some YouTube videos too, is that correct?
Yeah.
Tell us about that. I've got you here. Let's let the folks know.
Okay. Well, I'm the only Hazel Denhart on the web so far. So if you just Google Hazel Denhart, you should be able to find those YouTube videos very easily. Also, there's a link on the website of the Invisible Press. And I lay out what this is in 4 short videos. They're about 10 minutes apiece.
Well, that's fantastic.
4 parts.
Yeah, they can hear you, and then if they want to go forward, they can either call Front Street Books or go to Invisible Press.
And if you don't like reading, that's okay. You don't have to be a print reader. I have audio recorded the first chapter of the book, which is available. It's also available on YouTube, so you can listen to it.
All right. Well, listen, I want to thank you for coming in. Can I get you another cup of coffee?
Oh, I think 2 cups of coffee is good. Let me tell you, this local coffee,
it is some good stuff.
It's terrific.
Well, Dr. Hazel, I want to thank you for coming in. You're headed to next?
We're going to New Orleans, so we're going to Del Rio. That's our next stop. We talked to a writers group there also in 2017. But let me tell you, if you think you are a writer, you are. The doctor just told you, you are.
All right. Well, we've been visiting with Dr. Hazel. The book is called The Universal Grammar of Story. That name is going to be changed to
Writing for the Soul of the World.
There you go. The title tells it all right there. And get inspired, learn how to get rid of those blocks that you might be having in your head, or if you just haven't been motivated enough. Talking with her, I think that if you've been listening, you can't help but be motivated. And we were talking off the air earlier. There's writing that obviously has been going on for thousands of years, but creative writing has sort of been in a lull in the past 50, 60 years. So this might be a way for you to break out and be the one that the next Ernest Hemingway, the next great author for people.
You're out there.
All right. Thank you, Doctor, and we'll have a safe trip to Del Rio.
Okay.
We'll be back with some more music after these messages